On the command feedback page, you need to specify the type of control signal that you are sending to the amplifier. In this example, we are commanding digital direct PWM to the amplifier, so we should select direct PWM under the control type field and PWM under signal type. On this page, we can also specify the number of counts per revolution of our rotary motor and the number of poles in the motor. If you specified that you were using a linear motor, you will need to specify the number of counts per electrical cycle, not per revolution. You also need to specify what type of feedback is being used for the primary feedback, which is used for positioning the motor, and the commutation feedback, which is used for commutating the motor. If you are using a second encoder on this motor, specify what feedback type is being used for dual feedback, where one encoder is used for velocity and commutation feedback, and another encoder is used for position feedback. Most users will have only one encoder being used for the motor's position feedback and the commutation feedback. Thus, the system setup software uses the feedback settings you specified on the previous page for both the primary feedback and the commutation feedback on this page, and leaves dual feedback set to false as it is here. Lastly, you need to select the phasing method. Phasing comprises helping PMAC to identify the position of the motor's rotor within one electrical cycle in order that PMAC can command a current vector that produces optimal torque. If the motor has an absolute sensor, you should just select absolute sensor from the list, and PMAC will determine the rotor's position simply from reading the sensor. If you are using an absolute sensor, you need to specify the source of the absolute position with the motor x.pabsPhase parameter, the format of that information in motor x.absPhase format, and the difference between the motor's zero position and the sensor's zero position in motor x.absPhase offset. You can either do this manually, or you can use the system setup software to configure these parameters on step 5 of the setup process on the interactive feedback page. If you do not have an absolute sensor, you can use the stepper method, which manually commutates the motor in order to locate the rotor position. This can create a lot of motion, so make sure it's safe to phase your motor in this way. This method is better for large loads. The other method, the four-guess method, which I have selected here, creates less motion, is good for light loads, and is generally not as accurate as the stepper method. Once you are finished, click Accept and the Next button.